Oh, with George Bush, I tried to impeach him twice, not just once, but twice. Unsuccessful both times. First time, it came back that one second here. I'm doing this without looking up documents, but the first time it got dismissed because I didn't file. What I was doing was filing a federal tort claim. Tort is a right for is a civil right for a criminal wrong, and there's a federal tort claims act that says you gotta have, before the suit, you have to have filed a federal tort claim with the government within like a certain period, I think 6 months or a year or something. So I'm accusing him of of conspiring 9/11 and all the things that Fahrenheit 9/11 talks about, and none of that came back to negate that. It just said, well, Chris Carolla can't sue because this and this, and so it got dismissed. No answers in that one. So the second one, I filed the tort claim so after like 6 months or a year, I refiled and tried it again. 1 second here. So I'm looking up the second one and talking about that he killed 3,000 people on 9/11, and talk about I'm calling them demons. Talk about my 9/11 scars in relation to the elections. The 2000 election was very close. 2004 election was close. And I mentioned some points that I got off a website that sort of talked to, I think it's like impeachgeorgebush.org or something. No, votetoimpeach.org, that's it. And so I put some points in there. And then I mentioned how so then I mentioned all these statements, the way that I was doing this. Like, I'm going to mention statements here, and if you don't say, like, it's like George Bush does not have godly powers. If he doesn't state something to the opposite, then that's the default. So I've got George Bush does not have godly powers. George Bush did not conspire 9/11. In the reply, let's see. He's got 33 of these things. Jesus. Superhero trash man's on the scene. I take out the trash. So we're going to determine if George Bush and Dick Cheney are the type of trash I take out. I can't be in the shack and awful. Let me explain how this works. What happens is I launch this missile, this bomb, shock, and in 60 days you have to figure out a way to copy and paste above statements in the reply in order to avoid the allegations listed. If you don't, it means it's the opposite. And that's the awful truth. Then we have a case. Then I get to ask questions and you cough up the answers under oath, exposing your soul or revealing the truly awful side of George Bush and Richard Cheney. It turns out that they don't care to listen to me, so whatever rules I want to make for determining what facts are. I have 33 things here listed, and they're supposed to copy paste these statements back into the replies so that we understand that this has occurred, that they don't have these things, and that includes, oh goodness, what do I have here? George Bush did not conspire 9/11. George Bush had no idea that 9/11 was going to occur. George Bush could really give a crap how many people die over in Iraq. George Bush did not conspire to promote the Iraq War. In other words, you got to get rid of the could not and the nots. If they don't paste it in there, it means the opposite. George Bush does not have godly powers. I mean, Dick Cheney does not have deadly powers. Dick Cheney did not correspond. 11. Similar things as George Bush. Magic was not used to rig the 2000 election and 2004 election. Magic was not used to fly planes into 9/11. Magic is not used to create Dick Cheney's Halliburton's oil. The oil reserves seem to be endless reserve, and I suspect that is something hard to believe that animals and plants can just decay, and we literally we scoop up millions of barrels a day of that stuff. It seems like it's endless, so I suspect something is supernatural there. 9/11 was not conspired to set up Chris Roller as a false prophet. George Bush is not a member of the mafia. George Bush, Sanford, Dick Cheney. I had similar things with Dick and George. George Bush had no part in allowing guests bin Laden to exit the country 3 days after 9/11 occurred. Attorney General is using the close eyes, submit button, pray for something not too bad, and open eyes method to reply to this complaint. George Bush does not want to be bubbatized. I have a little bit of humor in these things, you know, and there is absolutely no acknowledgement of this humor or this bubbatized thing. Bubbatized is what is that? Give me a second. Bubbatized is the baptism by Bubba, which is the sodomization of. It's a figure of speech, but literally it could be mean that it's the sodomization of Bubba due to him pleasuring himself. But it essentially means getting bent over. Essentially, that's what it means, getting bent over. Literally, it could be, you know, a black man. He's got a big honking dick, and he's gonna rip you to shreds, right? But figuratively, it's getting bent over, and that's what bubbatized means. But so what else, man? Chris Roller makes up shirts, but Dick Cheney is pondering his Bubba's play toy. That's the words on his shirt. I'm submitting this in court documents, you know. George Bush truly thought WMDs were in Iraq. Sanford Dick. George Bush has never lied under oath. Sanford Dick. George Bush does not support the insurgency over in Iraq, hinting that George is actually rooting for the insurgency. Treason. George Bush is not a fraud. Dick Cheney is not a fraud. George Bush did not have godly powers prior to 1 January 2007. Anyways, none of these statements were in the reply. It's in the and I tried to make this class action and under my patent thing, which I thought I had going. So that's a summary of that. Give me a second. Let me think. I just noticed that I wrote the document, this complaint for the second one, on September 11th of 2007. It's about when it got filed. During the second one, during the hearing, the actual in-person hearing for the dismissal, of course, I got to ask the attorney for let's see, the attorney for the federal, for George Bush. One second, let me think about this. My name is Patricia Kangemi. I respected this lady. I respected this. It was Um, what I've noticed is all the nice lawyers seem to get out of the way and let the bad ones come to the surface. So what happened is that I got to ask some questions. I got to ask, did George Bush try to kill me? Because this was happened, the Virginia Tech shooting occurred shortly after the filing of this thing. Um, um, and I suspect the bomb was placed underneath Red Lobster I was at. Anyways, oh boy. So I got to ask her, did George Bush, I suspect that George Bush conspired that. Well, possibly it didn't. It's just it was, shortly after I filed the case, and it was like the serving time within the 2 months after filing it. And she said no. So I got to ask my first question ever. I got to ask my first question ever in all my lawsuits in which we try to get the truth and justice. I was just trying to ask my first question ever, and my only one, and in all the lawsuits except for my GE case, I got to ask some questions in there. Of course, they got to answer only the ones they wanted to. So she said no, and I said, so did he conspire on 9/11? Right then, Judge Franklin Noel interrupted me and said, don't answer that. So I got to ask one question before the Honorable Franklin Noel decided that we care about what's happening on this planet, truth and justice. Stop that from occurring, stop that question from, that answer from occurring, and we will have no more of that, not from the freak who wants to know things. He wants to become all-knowing, and Franklin Noel is going to stop me from becoming all-knowing. So, thank you, Franklin. Honorable, yeah. It wasn't long. It was like 2 weeks later, a week or two later, I got notice that Patricia Kangemi was being relieved of duty. And this was, I was getting at, it seemed like the nice ones move to the side whenever they need to do, whenever the dirty people, whenever when it needs to be dirty work done, they bring in the dirt bag. So I got a new one coming in, and he, from my next case, I saw him once or twice in following up cases. I don't know if it's related, but I've also noticed that I'm not sure she lied under oath, because I tend to believe whatever she said, that George Bush didn't conspire. I also later realized that you cannot lie. I guess you can lie under oath, but you incur a penalty. It's like God casting down a lightning bolt from above. I experienced it once with the Raven Hill and getting a statement done, and my car wouldn't start up right after I signed the statement. I realized that I lied in the unreal. In other words, you got to be careful what you sign, because it affects the unreal as well. The truth affects the unreal. So now I'm under the impression that maybe she was penalized for lying, and I don't know why. I don't know what, like, if something happened bad in her life, but I realized that people can lie, but they cannot lie without penalty. So there has to be a penalty. If they do lie, there is a penalty, and something bad is going to occur in your life. Whether it may take a year, but I think it's pretty quick. I think it's actually within a week or two. That's what. One second here. So Patricia says, defendants move to dismiss complaint for failure to set forth a jurisdictional basis pursuant to the Federal Rule of Civil Procedure. The following defenses may be at the option of the pleader to be made by motion. lack of jurisdiction over the subject matter, which basically means that they can't sue over the subject, and it's ridiculous. It's stupid. It's, of course, they have the option to be made by these lack of jurisdiction over the person. So evidently we can't get to, even though George Bush is a federal employee, we can't get to him. Let's see here. Of course, there's the standard one, failure, the failure to state a claim upon which relief may be granted. What else here? Of course, I got this infringement thing going, so I'm trying to. They're defending that, but of course they claim sovereign immunity defense. And in other words, you can't sue the government. Of course, that was the federal tort claim back in the 50s, I think, that took care of that. But of course, I don't know why they bring it up. It's not. I don't think that's why it got dismissed. I should maybe check. Let me check on that quickly here. What the judge said. I don't know. I must have re-edited that file for the George Bush, because this thing was filed before April. The Virginia Tech shooting was 16th of April, 2007. So I must have filed this about a month or two before. And I must have modified that file that showed September 11th, 2007. It says here, defendants with the person. Oh, shoot. Oh, hang on. It says, to avoid dismissal, a complaint must allege facts sufficient to state a claim as a matter of law and not merely legal conclusions. Not merely legal conclusions. So it's not good enough to state legal conclusions, like you tried to kill me. You have to allege facts sufficient to state a claim as a matter of law. Well, I think attempted murder is a claim. It's one of these statements. The plaintiff must provide more than labels and conclusions, and a formulaic recitation of the elements of a cause of action will not do. Of course, you got to read that again about 3 more times. A plaintiff must provide more than labels and conclusions, and a formulaic recitation of the elements of a cause of action will not do. Factual allegations must be enough to raise a right to relief about the speculative level on the assumption that all the allegations in the complaint are true. Makes sense, right? Pro se pleadings should be liberally construed and are held to a less stringent standard when challenged by motions to dismiss. In other words, they give me a handicap because they understand that I suck. Actually, the reason why I suck is because I'm not a lawyer, and they're all in bed together. They're all banging each other. My complaint fails to contain specific factual allegations to support its conclusions. Therefore, it must be dismissed. The plaintiff has provided no information to permit the inference that the defendants have conspired to kill him. Plaintiff only states the ultimate legal conclusion that the defendants have conspired to kill him. There we go. As I said, plaintiff's only specific allegation relates to a bomb being placed under the restaurant. However, he states that the bomb did not detonate. Instead, he claims that the bomb caused the Virginia Tech shootings. Plaintiff has failed to allege sufficient facts to raise his claims above mere speculation as required by a case Bell Atlantic. Since the defendant's motion to dismiss should be granted, it must follow that the plaintiff's motion for summary judgment be denied. So again, it is like, well, this is what the plaintiff's doing, and you sort of, because you can do this, you can't do that, and this is almost what they're saying. Almost you can do this, and because of this, you can, and this should be this, and this and that, thus dismissed. That's beautiful how that works, ain't it?